Aloha.
Aloha, indeed.
I'm
Looking
trying not to be, you
refreshed.
still look tanner than me.
Well, while you were gone, I spent a weekend in Nashville with my
Okay,
girls
there you go.
outside, and it was hot at
Yeah.
HOT. So, yeah, it's the train has left the station when it comes to summertime in my skin, for better or worse. But you do look refreshed,
Thank you. Yes.
vibrant.
It was a good time away. It's nice to take a break
Yeah,
every once in a
right.
while.
And like you said, you have then not necessarily been super in touch with LinkedIn. I mean, regardless of the work stuff you had to put pause on and try to figure out how to balance, LinkedIn was probably at the bottom of that list, but that's often where we get our topic ideas.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but somehow you had a topic idea that you did see on LinkedIn, and it kind of dovetails with the topic idea I had that came from some client
Yeah.
communications
We were
back and
vibing.
forth. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I suggested that we talk about the negotiation process with influencers and creators with regard to pricing, with regard to usage rights, and all the nuances and dynamics that go into negotiation. And you said that aligned with something you've been.
Yeah,
Give
so
us
I
more
wanted
there.
to just talk about pricing in general because we've had some interesting conversations pop up with a client. So for most of our I should kind of set the stage. If that's okay, I'll just jump in.
Yeah.
Um, for most of our clients, we just put a program together and it's a bundle price, and there are some influencers who might cost more and there are some who might cost less. At the beginning of the program, the client agrees, like, okay, I'm paying this lump sum amount, I'm going to get this many pieces of content from influencers within this range, so they don't think they're getting 10 people who are all 1 million followers. Plus we give parameters, and that's usually fine. Clients don't necessarily want to be in the weeds on that.
Hmm.
Every once in a while we have a client where they want to be more in the loop on
Okay.
everything. And so we are working with a client now who wants to know, who understands that we take a margin, but wants to know what the influencers are actually charging.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sometimes we say no to this. In this case, it made sense for us to say yes. It's not really a big deal on this program. And so all the pricing on this program is totally transparent. And what is happening with this client is, first of all, he's had some conversations with one of the managers on his own, and he was getting some different pricing than what we were getting. So
Okay.
we had to sort that goes back
Quicksand.
to the manager hinkiness that sometimes goes on. We sorted that out. What's happening now, though, is we sent over a list of suggested influencers, and there are some who he really likes, but he is saying, I like them, but not at this price. This is too expensive for this influencer. This is too expensive for
Okay.
this influencer.
Hmm.
I should note that this manager that he has chatted with, um, notorious, is charges could charge more for his influencers. We are frequently surprised by what a great value his
Okay.
influencers are when we work with him. And so, if I don't know if this manager is what's giving our client a sense of what the going rate is, because this manager is really below rate,
Right.
um,
Right.
or if he has some other, he's kind of referenced, we're having conversations to trying to suss this out more, but he's referenced some kind of tool that gives him pricing on influencers. And so it just got me to thinking, like, we have a tool on our end. So we have this pricing worksheet that I think I've referenced, and for Instagram and for TikTok and for YouTube, for different sizes of influencers, we have in there, we have like our standard rates for that size of influencer.
Right. And
All
probably a
that
range, right? Like a little bit of a
I
range.
mean, we had put a rate in there just so we can make calculations, but there's
Okay.
always a discussion because sometimes, like, we're recruiting for a program right now where all of the influencers are house contractors.
Right.
They're
It's a way different
it's going to
scene.
be like most, yeah, like they could be crazy expensive. Some of them might not be. Like
Right.
we had to put some wiggle room in there.
Yeah.
If we do a program, we do a lot of programs with doctors.
Mm,
They're way more expensive. There are very few doctors who
right.
will do influencer marketing, and so they charge more. So there's all, one, we have like base rates in our system, so we kind of have a starting point for negotiation.
Right.
But then we know the other factors that go in and can
So much.
impact
Yeah.
stuff.
So much context.
We always have a conversation when we're working on pricing to say, does our standard rate work?
Mm-hmm.
Is this
What
one
are we
super
seeing?
easy? Can we take it down? Do we have to take
Right.
it up? Do we have to leave like kind of a bucket of money to
Right.
have available for negotiations? There's like,
What are the drivers here? What are the levers we're flipping?
there's so much
every
that
program
goes.
is different.
Yeah. So we were
Yes.
kind of like, when this guy said like, well, I'm using this tool that I have and these people are too expensive, like all these red flags were going
Of course.
off, popping
Yeah.
up,
Yep.
appearing,
Waving wildly.
waving for me because I mean, and again, like we have, I don't know if you'd call it a tool. It's a spreadsheet. I guess a spreadsheet's a tool. Like we have a tool too. We have a parameter, but like this guy happens to be navigating in a space that is kind of specialized where I don't think anyone should expect standard rates to be the standard.
From word one, when you said, well, we made an exception for this client, I was like, no, I saw the writing on the wall.
I
We're
mean,
having the
I would still
same
do it. Like if you asked
issue.
me, I would still do it. Like it still makes sense for this. It's still fine if this client wants to have transparency. Like I'm okay with it. But I think with that transparency has to come some kind of understanding of like our expertise in doing this for over 15 years, and that influencers are not, we've said this so many times, like this is not a bag of coffee.
It's not transactional. It's not a media buy. It's not a
not a
bag of
commodity.
coffee. Yes, I totally agree. And I will push back. This might be one place where we disagree then. Hey, we found it after all these episodes. I stand firm in this conviction about not just the package deal, but what you're talking about. And you're right. It might be fine in a one-off. It might be fine because this person, you know them, you know what their intention is. I don't have insight to all of that. But the operational efficiencies that get blown up by somebody saying, oh, I just want to have transparency on the rates. Transparency on the rates starts to be, there's an approval layer, which you're now running into that wasn't necessarily negotiated in, but it's like goodwill.
I mean, we always have an approval. Like they always get to choose the influencers, but typically they're choosing them based on their
vibe, their aesthetic.
What's upsetting me here is I love this person. This person is perfect, but not at this price, because this is a tricky program to recruit for. And so if they still fit within the overall budget and they just happen to be more expensive, like
we have to do it.
That's where I can't,
Because now you're asking my team, I'm sort of putting myself in your place or advocating about this. Here's my soapbox. If this client, well-meaning, he's got his own set of goals around this.
Yeah.
If he starts becoming a roadblock, that's more work for your team. That's more cost for your team. That's delays to the program. You and your team are experts at navigating all of these variables at once.
I also want to say that it happens all the time that an influencer is charging too much. And, if a client really wants to work with them, like we will raise that alarm proactively.
Yes.
So if we have a client, like we have another client who there was someone who they really, really wanted to work with, and we reached out and we got rates and we negotiated a bit, we got them down a bit, not enough from our perspective. And we said, okay, we can work with this person. She's coming in like 50% higher than what we think is warranted here, given everything that we know about it. So we can make her work, maybe,
something else might have to give.
Reduce the program, but, reduce the number of total influencers, change reduce the paid amplification, something, we're telling you we can work with her. We think she's too expensive.
Right. Let us,
so
though,
we will,
as the experts, tell you that.
Right.
Because
so
it's
that's what I
become
want to say is that
emotional.
we know.
It becomes emotional for the client, right? They think that it's strategic. They think that they're buying a bag of coffee or negotiating strategically and being savvy, but it really does become emotional for them. Like, why am I paying this much? And how dare this person? And now they're mad at the influencer that really is perfect and you know how to guide them and get the right mix of people. Oh, I'm so glad you went this direction because we are absolutely in that same process with a client. And they want to reduce it to what are the line items for everything that's going on. And that's just operationally terrible. There's no way. And once we open that Pandora's box and say, here's how it looks, our margin varies because we use that as the cushion for that negotiation to some degree. Like, we're taking the hit, we're taking the risk. We've said, here's your budget. This is what we can do. Like you said, we know what we can do within that budget. So I think that it's better. I like the package deal. I like the being one source of excellence and partnership for the client to go to, rather than like now your client is got his fingers in the pie and the pie is changing flavors.
It's not my favorite because you're right. Like, it creates layers, but more and more, I'm becoming more and more okay with that way of working because I think that there is a lot of, excuse me, I felt that coming. I think that there's a lot of, press is not the right word. I think there's a lot of buzz these days and just like kind of little voices telling clients to ask more questions about how much influencers are getting paid and what is the margin here. Like, I think there's a lot of pressure on clients to understand more about the pricing and to kind of like dive deeper. I think some of that pressure is legit because, as you and I have talked about, there are some bad actors in the space that are double dipping and not being honest about stuff. And so from like a business perspective, like, I understand why a client would want to know more. And at the core of it, I don't really have a problem being like, we fully deserve any fee that we take. And I have become okay with
advocating
sharing that and advocating for it and explaining what we do to justify it and what makes that fee adjust and all of that. So I have become more and more okay with like that paradigm and that way of working. I think, and then the other piece of it is, I think when you're working with macro elites, so if you're doing a program where you're working with just one or two people who are like 1 million followers, 2 million followers, and the whole program is like one person or two people, I think more transparency is needed in that situation because it's not really a bundle. Like, you're not buying a package of a bunch of influencers. You are buying content from one person, and like it becomes more like an agent thing where there is a percentage. I don't know. So I'm just seeing
you
more
might
and
be
more
undervaluing
reasons.
though the management that goes into that, the expertise that you're bringing to it.
But I still take my fee. I mean, we still take a fee on that. I'm just saying, like, if it's just one, or like if it's 20 people, do you really need to know what each micro influencer is charging? So I would argue no.
The more influencers that become visible to the client and the process, the more chance for that to become a drag. Versus if it's one or two, the communication can be fluid. I think that makes sense operationally, that it's not going to be as much as maybe as emotional. It's more collaborative. But again, and speaking of that, I want our agency to be a peer partner, not a vendor, not a service, not a broker.
Totally. But in that case, there's no reason not to be transparent then. So like, for example, like if I'm a brand manager
And wait, let me back up and say I'm not advocating for or against transparency. So it's not that I'm against that. And continue, because I do disagree with the premise, I think. But keep going.
What I'm saying is if it's fewer influencers. So I'm a brand manager. I'm doing a program. I'm hiring, I was just listening to Armchair Expert. I'm hiring Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell to do some social media content for my brand. If my boss asks me what I'm paying them, I'm going to feel like I should know. Like, I think it would be hard for me as a brand manager to say, I'm not sure it's bundled in. Like, if you're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars towards one person or towards two people, I think there's just.
Well, let's take that
think
further.
The brand has. I think it's more important for a brand to understand how much they're spending per person when you're getting into six-figure dollar amounts for that individual person. If you're talking like a six-figure total budget with 20 people, does it matter what each influencer costs? Not as much. You're talking a six-figure budget for one person, I kind of think it does.
I think it's all about how you set up the outcomes. And it costs this much to work with Sway, to work with Maverick, and do X. That's what it costs. So how much are we paying Kristen Bell? We're spending this much to get this. And Sway is our way to do that and get there. And here's what we're saving operationally, headcount, time, all of that. So I disagree. I think they're just scaled versions. It becomes more intimate. So it becomes more, I think, fine-tuned. So it's a little harder to.
The process is also different on our end. So when we're doing like a larger group of influencers for like like one overall flat fee, the process is that we say like, okay, you're going to get 20 influencers for this amount. Let's contract, then let's recruit. When we're doing something that's specific to who the person is, it's like we call it a pre-contract recruitment. So if this program is just about Kristen Bell and
only
Dax Shepard,
yeah, they'll only work.
We're doing that recruitment ahead of time, and then we're contracting. And so, like, the whole process
with the client, you mean?
Yeah,
contracting with the client comes after.
Our client is not going to sign a deal with us until they know that we can secure the goods.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's
a very different process.
Yes, and at the end of the day, you're just putting the contracting in a different place in the pipeline. The outcomes that you're guaranteeing likely are part of that SOW.
Right. But
they're different. Maybe they're different from a big micro.
Well, yeah,
outcomes.
It's different. It's different because we don't know what those outcomes are until the person is selected. If a program is just one influencer, we cannot guarantee any outcomes until we know who that influencer is. It's much different than a group of 20 where we can say, okay, for this amount of money overall, you're going to get these outcomes. Here's the cost. Now let's recruit. If this whole program is dependent on just an individual person, we have to recruit that person before we guarantee any outcomes.
And again, let me clarify. It's not just any one individual person. It's a specific macro mega celebrity level, which to be fair, we're not doing on our end. And for this reason, we probably wouldn't.
And we've gotten totally down a rabbit hole. Yeah. I was just saying, like,
I would argue though that you're doing more heavy lifting with that one celebrity oftentimes than the 20 influencers.
I'm not saying nothing I'm saying has anything to do with the amount of work.
Yeah.
I'm talking more about transparency, and that I am seeing, and that I used to be in like 110% agreement with you that like, this is the overall cost. What we pay is none of your business. Just let us do our job. Yeah. Like, I used to be very, very like steadfast in this. And as we're having, like today, we're talking all about pricing stuff. What I am saying is that I have moved on that. And I now see there are now a few situations in which I have become more than okay with transparency and
Here's the other piece
Yeah.
I think that factors into this, and I am seeing the difference between the two. It's sort of like the concept, I'm going to go really far afield of the influencer industry, but the idea of tithing, when you go to church and you tithe 10%, 10% of somebody's annual salary at $50,000 a year is crucial to their, like, that's make or break. But if you're a multimillionaire, 10% is a rounding error. Not to say that your fees are a rounding error, but I understand that a six-figure salary for or compensation rate for one individual, and you layering your margin fee on top of that is much more palatable all around because you're starting with a bigger amount. Does that make sense? Like it's whereas I think carving our fee, we tend to do smaller programs than you budget wise. So I think carving out a fee in there, carving out the influencers, it's a lot less to work with in general to make it all happen. So I'm seeing what you mean. Like you're moving into, as you said, in that regard, more of a talent management role than a campaign management role. There is campaign management.
And I'm saying like that's the two areas where I'm okay sharing everything is if it's a really large program and I don't know, like just kind of the cost benefit analysis to us of like this client is insisting that it be transparent. Do we really want this work? Yes. Okay, let's make it happen and be okay with it. And then the other instance is when the program is so dependent on a few large influencers. I just think there's more I think
more scrutiny, maybe.
There's more scrutiny. It's just I think the brand feels more like
maybe closer to that negotiation.
And needs to have not more skin in the game, but like needs to be closer to that negotiation because it's higher stakes. It's higher stakes when you're taking a six-figure budget and putting it on one human being.
Right. And I would argue one is different by lots of degrees than two or three even. Like one person is like, then you've got a celebrity spokesperson, right? Then you've got an ambassador, which is to me different than like a campaign and a
maybe, but sometimes it's just
messaging.
for a single social media post. But
and I think also working with one person, because I am looking at it like margin, where we've argued, I think on the same side of the table, expecting an agency like ours to operate on a 7% margin or 10% margin is cray-cray. Like it's just, we don't. But if you have a $500,000 budget to enlist this celebrity, and it's one person and it's one social media post, as you just said, 7 or 10% of that might be totally fine because it's not 25 people that you're managing and activating your whole team and all of that. So not to say any of this is for or against transparency. I do feel that the bigger the program or the more influencers involved or the more, it just becomes more and more emotional to have, there's more delay, more drag, less operational efficiency, less ability to, like you're not negotiating with Kristen Bell. You're probably not doing a whole lot. Like they've got a set rate. They don't need to, not a Kristen Bell, but even those higher level, they've got a set rate. They don't necessarily need the brand deal. So they are, now I'm disagreeing with myself. They are different beasts in that way.
I think it is. And I I can't even remember what I was going to say, but like when you're talking about one of these bigger programs that has so many people in it, like I just kind of want to bring it back to, we don't want to pay we don't want to overpay either. And so like, to me, it gets to like this, and I think you started this conversation like with the usage thing where we're seeing influencers ask crazy amounts for usage. what I want to say to both the brands and to the influencers and managers is to like, I just wish there was more trust in us as the middle people of this arrangement, because from a brand perspective, I am not going to put you, without communicating it, I am never going to put you in a situation where you are paying way too much for a piece of content. One, it doesn't benefit me to do that because you're going to end up unhappy. And two, like, I just feel that like it is important for me to be a steward of my clients' money. And I am not going to recommend something that is a poor spend that doesn't make sense. From the influencer side, I am not going to underpay. So like,
Right. We're not out to get you.
right. So like
Influencers.
we have had we had an influencer. This was a few weeks ago, maybe what is time? A couple months ago, something. We had a client who wanted to buy an influencer's recipe outright. They did a program with this influencer. The social media post included a recipe. The client adored the recipe and said, "We want to own this recipe forever. We want to be able to
Full
use
stop.
it forever. We would like to buy this recipe from you." We
Nice.
went to the influencer. They came back with a ridiculously low rate that
Oh.
was, I was like, oh dear.
Yes. So did you ask
We said that is too low. We are going to ask for this on your behalf. And they
Amen.
said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." Like,
Amen.
we're
Yep.
not going to underpay. We're not going to underpay. We're not going to
Yep.
overpay. Like,
Yep.
it behooves us to be stewards of both sides of this
100%.
arrangement.
Yep.
And so like, I think that's the whole crux of this thing is like, you can't use a software tool to tell you what to pay. You can't like, there, you have to have a trusted intermediary who understands the value and who
Yes.
is trying to do a good job here.
Yes. So to wrap it up, here's the metaphor that's coming to me as you're saying this. We act as this turbine, this engine that in between the brand and the creator. And if you want to peek under the hood and start taking the parts all out, the engine stops working the way it should. Like you can't drive down the street with the hood open, right? I mean, that's very simplistic and not all metaphors are perfect, but let us be this catalyst. Let us be this force multiplier for your results, brands, and this steward of your work, influencers. Let us be this really powerful connective engine. I like that. I like it. I think that's a good way to kind of settle. But I like that we disagreed on something too. Yay, us.
Yay.
It's good. We're growing and evolving. This was good.
Awesome. Well, we will be back next week with more.
See you then.
Bye.